I could have bet you, and in fact I did, any money in the world that we'd see Rashford come alive for Villa. Everybody with half a brain knew he was going to lift the leg. Well, I'm not going anywhere unless I get precisely what I want. OK, we'll see about that.
That's unforgivable. That's unforgivable.
But the only people that are complaining are the ones that get the most benefits and people that are getting paid for hosting a match of the day.
Just a minute. I'm asking him, not you.
But you don't have a plan. You have a complaint.
You're trying to be destructive, which is your nature, which is true to you, as you normally are as a person. So I can understand that, Simon.
I'm trying to pin you down. You were wrong then, and you're wrong here.
Martin, what's your stance on Marcus Rashford? I'm looking at an abundance of messages coming in, especially after I posed a question going into 10:30. Where does it all end with Rashford? How does it end with Rashford? Rashford, of course, a Manchester United player who's on loan at the moment with Aston Villa, but who appears to have found his scoring touch. There is D. Jim, as a United fan, I'm very fed up about hearing about how great Marcus Rashford has been performing for Aston Villa. He should be ashamed of the fact that he turns it on for them, but not for Manchester United. There is Abby, who's a United fan up in Glasgow. Great start to the show, guys. Really enjoyed it. Marcus Rashford, I don't get it. All these fanboys are out praising him. Let's not forget it was against Preston. No offence to Preston. Marcus Rashford, for those who don't know, is on loan at Aston Villa because it wasn't going well, either on or off the pitch at Manchester United. He scored 2 in the space of 5 second-half minutes, put Preston out the cup, takes Villa through to the semi-finals, and this was him post-match.
So, yeah, it's obviously nice for a forward to always get goals, so hopefully it continues. Step by step, I think I can still, get fitter, and, I missed a lot of football before joining up with them, so, at the minute my body feels good, and, I'm injury-free and just enjoying my football, so all good for them.
Would United fans, Martin, be right in asking the question, well, hang on, how come you do it for them but you weren't doing it for us?
Of course they're entitled to that. And one would have assumed with a player this sort of skill set, this type of ability that he's got, that Amorim would have been able to get a tune out of him as well. And of course a lot of this is to do with the system that they play at Villa. Suits him. They have like a 3 up top, who of course have to defend, but not in the same way a wing-back would have. No, but
Martin, with respect, is it not a lot of it's got to do with the fact that the perception is he wants to do it for Villa, whereas he didn't particularly fancy doing it for United?
No, I think it's about the platform. Yeah, the platform you give him. Now, you can see he played up the middle yesterday for Villa, and he could you tell me that he couldn't do that for Manchester United? Why couldn't Amorim find a way for him to be successful in that position?
So why couldn't he?
Well, you'll have to ask Amorim that, because the manager of the job is to, first and foremost, he picks the 11, he gets the best from the 11, he has to work with them, and to sort of, you look at the new manager, Emery, is getting a very good tune out of him, whether he plays on the left, whether he plays down the middle. Ollie Watkins was a chance to rest him yesterday. Villa now sort of moving through the gears. Of course, they'd have too much for Preston, you know that. But this fella now is back, he's back on the road again, playing for his country. Okay, You look at it and
many people out there will be thinking, though, Martin, from distance, it seems that he's choosing to lift a leg for Villa, whereas he couldn't be bothered at United.
If you're in his camp, you'd be saying, come on, give it your best shot, because he's now saying that his fitness has taken a while to get back because he wasn't applying himself right on the training pitch. That's unforgivable. That's unforgivable, because the culture that Amorim is trying to set, you can't have a senior player being seen to not work.
Well, then you've answered your own question, haven't you?
Yeah, but at the same time,
the player took it upon it, as you will recall.
Yeah, but Amorim failed though, because he didn't get the best from the player.
As you will recall, the player took it upon himself to announce to the world via his PR representative Henry Winter that he wasn't looking very happy at Man United and wanted a new opportunity. So you've got a manager now that's going, right, I've come in mid-season, I'm shaking it up a little bit, I've got problems, what I need is everyone alongside me. I don't need him going and doing what he wants to do, which is go and have an interview with the media to impart his particular brand of wisdom. I could have bet you, and in fact I did, any money in the world that we'd see Rashford come alive for Villa. Fantastic. Wait until Villa have got a right check out. And I think Villa are too canny and too wise to fall into this trap. It's one thing having a player on loan when you're paying a small percentage of his wages, so it's a small transaction. You have him for 4 months, it costs you 5 or 6 million quid, nothing, nobody cares. You're getting that back from the gate receipts of the Champions League.
So the balancing act for Amorim is he wants to create a certain culture. And he's saying, OK, I'm not going to have it that this player, maybe he's turned up late for a meeting, there's been indiscretions, so you're out. So he banishes Rashford.
Followed by,
but
no, the player did a media interview. The player announced his position.
Okay, but there was a falling down, breakdown of communication.
Not really.
Well, there was.
How was there?
Because obviously he wasn't getting the vibes from his manager to begin with. Okay, he was wrong to do so. I agree with that. He was wrong to do so. But then you come together again, don't you? In the best interest of the football club, Manchester United, you want him on the pitch.
You sat across the table with us and argued vehemently about the retention of Aubameyang at Arsenal, and you were wrong then, and you're wrong here.
Yes.
The player's gone out on loan.
Aubameyang went off to
he's nicking a living.
Aubameyang went to Barcelona and scored 19 goals and got them into the Champions League. So it was a short-term fix, but it was being done long-term by Arteta, and it was right. It was right to do so.
But I think this might be.
I think this might be different though, because I don't know if there's a long-term future for Amorim at this football club.
We all said at the time, Martin, short-term gain for long-term loss. We all had this argument.
Yeah, but Amorim's losing too many games.
Now you've got the wisdom
but the
behind
comparison's not really there, Simon, because at least Arteta was winning games.
Rashford is the same.
Do you see?
Man United needs a cultural shift.
Could they not have done with him? Could they have done with him on the pitch? Could they have done with a Rashford firing and flying on the pitch?
But he wasn't, and he hadn't been for some time.
Whose fault was that?
He was too busy going out and not turning up for training under the last manager.
So do you feel he's signing for Villa now? Do you think
he was too busy having his birthday parties after getting smashed to pieces?
He was
by
being
Man City
unprofessional, yes,
for a period of time. And so he put out a lovely little image, as you'll remember, how wonderful the training was under the new manager. And 3 weeks later, he's announcing to the world's media that he wants to leave.
Emery should be applauded for what he's done, because he's gone and he's snatched him. He's taken him away from a huge club and he's put him back on the right lines.
I could guarantee you, and I think you're wise enough to know this, that Rashford is clever enough to know that if he goes to Aston Villa and stinks it out there, he's got a problem coming his way. So everybody with half a brain knew he was going to lift a leg.
So you don't just think it was giving the player...
I think the system helps him as well.
Simon Emery's backed him and Tuchel's backed him.
But they back him in a very limited way. Tuchel hasn't got to deal with him that much. He's going to pick him, X amount of times, and perhaps he gets into the World Cup. And he did the same thing a couple of years ago when he wanted to get into the World Cup in Qatar. All of a sudden, turned up, here I am, and bothered to play a decent season.
Yeah. You don't think Villa will buy him?
No. I think they're too wise for it. And first of all, they're not going to be able to want to pay £320,000 a week and a £50 million transfer.
Too big a deal.
Too big a deal.
You see, that's what we're getting. There's Guy, who's one of our listeners this morning. Why the hell are you guys lauding Rashford? Well, we're not really doing that. He's only doing the bare minimum expected for any forward, which is to run out, go wide, break in, score goals, and get 350 grand a week. But we're asking, right. He says it's embarrassing.
But we are asking for a balanced conversation here, and I do feel that there is a talented boy there. And at the end of the day, I'd rather, if I was a Man United manager, have him at my club and doing that on the pitch. And I'd feel in some way that I'd failed as well.
Can you see him back at Man United?
I think that's the only way forward, Jim, because I don't see that the deal's going to go forward at the figures that we're talking about and the wages we're talking about.
He's done.
It suits everybody right now, by the way, for him to do what he's doing.
Radcliffe and the guys
club and player.
They'll have to take a view.
He's trying to get to the USA in the World Cup with England.
He's done at Manchester United.
Right.
That die is being cast. You don't do an interview with the media, then get flung out on loan, and it comes back around in a full circle.
So if that die has been cast and he can't go back to Manchester United,
someone's going to have to take a view on the money.
And Villa aren't going to buy him.
Someone's going to, and who's going to take a view on the money? Rashford.
Is it as simple as that?
I'll tell you why he's going to take a view on the money. Because if he goes back to Man United and doesn't play ball Man United, they'll park his backside up and he'll be playing in no World Cup. So he'll have to take a view himself about, well, I'm not going anywhere unless I get precisely what I want. OK, we'll see about that when you come back in the summer and Man United rebuild their team, you're not part of it, and all of a sudden you're not part of anything, and people are taking a view on you, and all of a sudden you'll take a view on what you're prepared to accept in a deal.
I tell you what, Simon, let's put it out at this stage. Marcus Rashford, Villa fans, you've got him at the moment. Do you like what you've got? Should the club pull out all the stops to buy him, and it would be considerable money from Manchester United? Manchester United fans listening this morning, would you have him back? There is one no name in this message, Jim. We don't want him back. No way. Wanted rid of him years ago. He's the epitome of everything that's wrong with this football club at this time. Lazy, entitled, overrated, inconsistent, overpaid. Vince is a Villa fan. Vince, in the knowledge of that, do you want your club to buy him? Good morning.
Yes. Thanks for having me on.
Morning, Vince.
No, I don't. No, I don't. I think Villa are the biggest winners out of this loan deal. We've got a really talented player who is needed for our push for this FA Cup. We're still going for fourth in the league, and also we're in the Champions League as well, and we need that bit of quality. So the short term, if he scores 10 or 11 goals, I think that's brilliant. But for the money and the wages, I don't think we'll sign him.
And that's exactly the point you were making, Simon. You think it's win-win at this stage for Villa?
I think they're too canny, Villa. I think they're too smart. They know what they're doing. Emery's too good a coach. The ownership model is too bright. They can use Rashford to do the very things that the caller has just said, and they'll get some outcomes from him, and then they'll run away from the opportunity to sign him.
But Emery has to take credit, doesn't it? Because it shows that we've got a solid environment here. We can take the risk. We can bring him in, and we can look at what the strengths he brings to the squad. And we don't worry about, if there's a problem with his social life or the ways he's conducting himself. They're alleged reports that we're hearing about him. So he brings him in, and the player then starts to flourish. I'll always fight for the players because it's a short career, Jim. And finally, this player is seeing the light. And if he goes and he enjoys his football, he does well, that's what I want to see.
Yeah, but for any football club, it's not a light, it's a train coming down the tunnel that's going to buy him. Look, the bottom line is Rashford is what Rashford is now. He's 27 years of age. He's come out of a culture in Man United which has been wrong for some times. If you listen to the outside noise about what he does and doesn't do off the field, unconfirmed, but I suspect there's probably some substance in it. His performances over the last 2 or 3 years, at the very best, have been inconsistent. At the worst, sometimes have been really poor for the parent club.
Yeah, but that's where his advisors need to come in, and they need to form.
That's where he needs to grow up.
No, there's advisors and the people around him. He needs to create his own culture. This is how I train. This is how I work. Don't follow anybody else.
He is now
staying him long enough, man.
Yeah, but that's where he should be next.
He doesn't need his bag-carrying advisors to tell him what to do.
There's Jill. Have him back at United. No chance. No chance. I'm raging listening to this. Paul's a Manchester United fan. Paul, good morning. What do you think? What happens if Aston Villa give it a polite, "No, we're not going to buy him. He's all yours"? How do you feel at United then, Paul?
Aston Villa aren't going to buy him. Not a chance. They'll see through him. They'll see for what he is. Rashford was a very, very lucky young man when he was spotted by Louis van Gaal. He fetched him through because if it had been left to Mourinho, he'd have been left in no man's land. He wouldn't have got nowhere near the first team under Mourinho because he liked to finish articles. So he's been a very, very lucky player along the way. And his attitude for the last few seasons, it stinks. And I'd just put him in the wilderness and said, stay where you are. Just stay where you are. Go out on loan to somebody like Crew. No disrespect to Crew. On their wage stretch. I know it could never have happened. And appreciate what you've got when you finally come back to Old Trafford. But that was never going to happen. Villa won't buy him because they'll see him through his attitude. And it's ever since, I don't know if it's right or not, but it's ever since Jadon Sancho come to Manchester United from Dortmund, and he was, let's be honest, a lazy player, and he was castigated, and it always seems that he's in support of Jadon Sancho, and since that time, we've seen nothing from Rashford. Absolutely nothing. And like Simon said earlier on, only when there's a tournament coming up, guess what? Rashford turns it on. Other than that, get him out of the club, get him off the books, get him away from Old Trafford as far as possible.
Wow, strong stuff from you, Paul. Thank you for that. Scott's a Villa fan. Scott, would you hope beyond this, say you end up winning the cup and he scores a winning goal, you'd want him, would you not? You'd want your club to buy him, or would you?
Morning, gents.
Morning, Scott.
To be honest, I echo a little bit what the last caller said. I think his attitude over the last few years, just looking at it, his general body language and, thinking, look what you've got, the money he's on, X, Y and Z. He's been a fortunate fella to get where he has, I believe, because I think he's been massively sort of overrated. He has come to Villa. He's done well within reason, but only that's because of the way we've allowed to probably utilise him. And we have got, to be honest, we have got a better squad. Manchester United ain't in a great place at the minute. But I generally think we're not going to pay 350 grand or whatever he's on per week. That'd upset the apple cart straight away. And what is it, £50 million tag? I think I don't know what will happen with him, to be honest. Go abroad, Saudi, maybe. But I don't think we'll sign him.
You don't think so? Listen, thanks for that. Thanks, Scott. There's one from Martin. The Rashford question's a no-brainer. If they were to buy him and pay his wages, Aston Villa, he'd be the most expensive player at the club. That cannot happen. I'm with Simon all the way on this. Just before we leave it, Jordan's a Manchester United fan who's been waiting patiently. Jordan, good morning. Where are you at with this Rashford situation?
Good morning, gents. Hope you well. Simon, I completely agree with everything you're saying. Coming out before Christmas regarding this interview saying that he wants to leave. As a Man United fan, why do we want somebody who wants to leave, but also pick and chooses when he wants to perform? At the end of the day, this is a player that we're talking about who probably performs 1 in every 4 seasons. His last good season was Ten Hag's first year, and again, coming up to the end where a tournament's coming up to it. We don't want him back. I don't want him back. I was at his first game. I was so happy when he started that game when Martial was injured. I was at his first game, and I was so happy that we've got this prospect coming through. He just looks like he's just not interested. He's not been interested for a long time, and we don't want him. We don't want him. Simple as that. I don't want him back.
Jordan, thank you for that. There you go, Martin. You've heard it from Villa fans. You've heard it from Manchester United fans. In no small measure from United fans.
Yeah. It shows you, doesn't it? For all the skill and talent, the player that works hard first and represents the badge is what the fans look at most. And obviously, the Man United fans, okay, we've only spoke to a couple there, but they want him out. But Villa, I still think it's canny business for them. Really good move to bring him in.
In the short term, right.
Short term, I think it works. Long term, I think everybody's sensible. I think it was Paul there that called in. Scott, who said really sensible things there. That look, okay, well, while we've got him, we'll enjoy him and we'll make the best of him. But right. He'll be on his way back.
That's right.
Yeah. We'll hone in on what Gary Lineker was saying in recent days regards players travelling the planet, coming back, and then pretty much running out of gas on the field of play. Did we see that on Friday night when Brighton were up against whoever it was they were up against, Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup on Saturday? So wrong team, wrong day, but anyway, we got there. Brighton went out in the end on penalties to Forest, but neither side could score in 90 minutes, neither side could score in 120 minutes, and maybe it was to do with the travelling that certain players had done. Estupiñán, Mitoma, Baleba, all who started for Brighton, each travelled more than 11,000 miles during the international break. Meantime, Forest Murillo travelled more than 13,000 miles, and Ola Aina travelled over 9,000 miles. So Gary Lineker weighed in, and Martin, I wonder if this is music to your ears. Football needs to address this a little bit, the player welfare. I know people will say players get paid a fortune. Of course they do, and they will not complain. It's not about just the players, it's also about the paying public will suffer, because you're not going to get the players at their very best. 4 Brighton players started today. Look at the miles. You're talking jet lag, etc., etc., etc. Is he singing from your hymn sheet, Martin? Is he right?
Well, you know my views on this, and the fixture, the calendar gets ever bigger. We have a situation at the end of the season, this Club World Cup, where the season will finish very late, Jim, and then off they go to play in this World Club competition. The season will start again around about the 10th of August, the Community Shield. The new season starts the 16th of August. So there literally won't be a break for the Chelsea, Man City players and all the other 32 teams that are going to take part in this new World Cup competition. So
but can you make the link though, Martin, when it comes to international travel? Murillo, the rest of them, Estupiñán, Mitoma, Baleba, they'd be in private jets. They weren't sitting in economy with their knees around the neck.
No, but it's not an easy thing to jump off a plane and suddenly be at your best, is it? After travelling those amounts of trips, 10, 11 hour trips at a time, you do over there and back. If it was down to Simon, he'd be happy if they were playing on the moon. 250,000 miles or 480,000 mile round trip.
It's a bit extreme. But as you've already said this morning, Martin, it's a short career, which is not, because they earn a fortune.
It's a short career, yeah. It is a short career, but so that's we want.
So it's a short career, so that's why they're cramming in as much football as they can.
Yeah, but also it's more cosmopolitan than it's ever been before. You're now seeing players from South America and everywhere else. That's a big change that we've seen from the likes of Brighton and Bournemouth and now Forest with those players.
So your argument
so travelling an awful long way around the world.
I hear you. I mean, just so you're clear on this short career nonsense, the average career in this country is about 8 years. The average footballer's career is 9.5 years. So it's actually average. The football career is longer than the average career that most people work in other walks of life without the reward and the fanfare. You can run your argument for Man City and Chelsea, but this is Brighton and Nottingham Forest. They're not going to play 60 games this season. They're going to play far less than that. So I don't know what you want to do here. No one's coming up with solutions. If they're going to, if they want to do a mid-season break, I'm all for finding solutions.
We had one. We don't have one now.
What everybody says is they point their finger at it and go, "That's what we should do. It's terrible." Right, okay. Now the reality is, how are we going to change it? We've got FA Cups, we've got League Cups, we've got Champions Leagues, we've got Premier Leagues, we've got football that appears to have lots of money but doesn't seem to be making any profit because all the money is being sucked out of the room by player transfers, agent fees, and player wages. So they've got to keep on putting these new tournaments on top. And I do agree the principle of what you're saying is, but but tell me how it's going to be done. Because everybody stops at that point. They all go, this is what I think should happen. Fantastic.
But
what's
to a degree, do you take Lineker's point that all this travel can lead to a fairly indifferent spectacle on the field of play, which Brighton, Nottingham Forest normal time and extra time was?
Well, I mean, if you use that as an example,
maybe not
possibly.
at the end of extra
time.
time.
They didn't come straight off a plane like Martin Bacoli and walk straight into a boxing ring, did they? So the bottom line is slightly different.
You saw how he performed, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. We saw how he performed, yeah. But they didn't come straight off a plane and get punched in the face, did they? They ran around on a football field. And ultimately, if you want to make this argument about the fact that players are struggling from fatigue from being on planes, yeah, you're getting off a flight, you don't feel great. We all know how we feel when we get off a flight, irrespective of whether you're flying in first class or you're flying in coach. You don't feel great because you're in compressed environments, and as an athlete, you're not going to be at your best. But again, I go back to the point. What is Brighton and Nottingham Forest do not play in Europe, are not playing a litany of games. They're playing the domestic schedule, and their players want to play for their international countries.
Yeah.
What would you have the football fraternity do? Rather than tell people what you don't want to do, because we all know that. It's well rehearsed.
So what would you feel then to that negative?
Martin, hang on.
But
that's
just
the key
a minute.
That
I'm asking him, not you. I'm asking him. What would he do?
I'm not complaining.
Morning, everyone.
So
every now and again, I
instead,
just sit in this chair, just stroll in, and just hang about. Really,
I would accept, A, as an owner, and B, as a paying member of public, that every now and again you're going to see performances which aren't quite where you want them to be.
So I
would accept that. That's what I would do. Now, if I wasn't prepared to accept
you've
asked
me what I would bring in.
Yes.
So what I would do is every year I'd have a situation where you get minimum of 4 weeks at the end of your season off. Away from it. We've had record number of hamstring injuries in the last couple of years.
But you're managing
what is happening.
But Martin, you're managing the 5%.
And we play.
You're changing the rules for the 5%.
You've got a certain number of hours as well. We had Real Madrid complaining about this recently. How many hours you play between each game to restrict that? Because I would like to play in every game. So make it possible for me to do so.
How?
Because the number of hours between each match, that's what they need to do.
How?
Well, look, we've had a situation, some of these South American international players, why are they playing so late in the week?
Don't play them then.
Why are they not playing at the
alternative is, of course, don't play your best players, which then what would happen is, don't play your overseas players because they're going to international games. Then you start to suppress buying players from overseas, and we get to a closed marketplace where people have got to pay more money for British players because the overseas players now are actually a deterrent to play because they're travelling too much to play for their bleeding international countries. There is no solution to it.
It is another barrier, isn't it?
It is, but the only people that are complaining are the ones that get the most benefit and people that are getting paid for hosting a match a day. With due respect, I don't think the paying public.
So you don't think the players are complaining then?
Yes, the ones that get the most benefit.
No, the players.
Precisely them.
The players want to be at the table with the main stakeholders to decide.
To tell them what they don't want to do
and put all of our fixtures together.
But again, Martin, it's really simple. I made this point the other day, and no one seems to
take less money.
Not just that.
That's your stock answer.
No, it's not. It's not just that. If you only want to play a certain amount of games, rock into your owner, Mr. Rodri, because you're the person that was singing that particular song at the time, and tell him you want a contract for 50 games a season. And see how far it gets you.
Yeah, but no, I wouldn't. It might be more than that, mightn't it? So I'm asking you to divide it up. So you've got every 3.5 days you play a game.
How?
And we'll divide it up.
How?
And at the end of the day, we need 4 weeks because the players need. Because you're not going to have any players, are you?
You're
flogging the players.
You're going in a circle. It's like stop the boat.
No, I'm trying to find a solution.
How are you going?
You're trying to be destructive, which is your nature, which is true to you, as you normally are as a person. So I can understand that, Simon.
I'm trying to pin you down.
If you were to use some of that energy in a positive way, we might see a better Simon Jordan.
Martin, last week I asked you to give me a solution to the fella being on Tyrone Mings. You had no clue then either.
No, because I'm not a part of that consultancy team, am I? I'm not a stakeholder in that.
Any solutions.
No.
Tell me how you fix it.
I can sit here. You want to ridicule.
Games,
you tell me what you would do.
Nothing.
You come back.
I don't have a problem.
So what, you want to just flog the players? You want copious amounts of injuries? You want record numbers of hamstrings?
It's a fair question to ask, Martin.
I'm asking you how you fix it.
I have asked. I've stated 4 weeks rest.
We don't need to
go. You don't listen.
We don't need to go into lift.
You don't actually listen. And then I'm saying that we don't play for 3.5 games. We have a gap of a certain number of hours between each game.
How do you do that? When these boys want to play international football as well.
The PFA has to fight for that.
How, Martin? How do you change the schedule?
Well, the players have actually talked about striking, haven't they, at one stage?
But that's not a solution. That's telling people what they don't want to do. If you've got a plan, I'm more than happy to go. That's a good idea, Martin. But you don't have a plan. You have a complaint.
I've just given you a plan.
What you're saying is,
I'm giving you. I want the players to have 4 weeks off.
They mustn't pay for 3.5 days, right? And they mustn't.
Is it not okay to have 4 weeks off?
How do they do it?
Because they have to come together. People create all these fixtures, don't they?
You're only also talking about 5% of the entire playing pyramid. You're making rules up for 5% of the players.
Yeah, but they're our
Most
best players. They're our best players, aren't they? That we want to...
So the only rules that apply. So
you don't think Rodri then, his injury at the start of the season, has anything to do with the workload?
I don't.
You just think he's unlucky?
Yes.
I don't agree.
That's fine.
I don't agree.
You're allowed to disagree.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm allowed to disagree with you. It doesn't make either one of us negative. You don't have a solution. I don't have a problem, and you don't have a solution.
I'm trying to create a solution.
To get somewhere
I don't have the power to create a solution.
Does it not come down to the players who will have to choose between club or country?
No, they want to play for both, Jim, don't they?
Well, this is it. This is the very point.
They want to. It's awkward that you ever come to this part of the world to play football. Martin, you have to travel that way.
But you can't have your cake and eat it.
But then you want your manager, though, don't you, to actually work it out
But Martin,
for you.
you're making an argument for Brighton and Nottingham Forest, and I hear your point. I'm not being destructive. But we're talking about Brighton and Nottingham Forest. They're not playing 60, 70 games. They're not going to a FIFA World Cup
they will be next year, won't they?
And you're whining about them now.
They will be next year in Nottingham Forest because they're going to be in the Champions League.
Possibly.
So it's an expectation they're going to have to. They're going to have to change in some way. No.
So then don't play in the Champions League then.
No, of course they want to play in the Champions League.
What do you want
then? I want it so that the players can play in every available fixture. But we have to come together. Why are we playing the World Cup this summer so quickly after the
Club World Cup?
Why are we playing that?
Money, £92
million.
And where's it going?
97.
£97 million.
Where's the money
but
going?
I just feel it's too much.
Where's the money going,
It's too much for these City players.
Where's the money
and
going?
the Chelsea
all
players?
into the players' pockets.
If Man City's wage bill is 65% of their turnover and their transfer fees are taking up the other 30%, it's all going to the players.
Actually, let's
the agents as well.
It's an odd time with the atmosphere as it is in this very studio, one of total hostility. It seems a strange time to be mentioning that love could be in the air. Maybe not in here for any of the three of us.
You're going to keep wearing that string vest, no?
But certainly out there
Onslow.
for many people who are listening. Arsenal. And Arsenal Invincible Martin Keown is with us. Arsenal have announced that they'll be launching their own dating show in an attempt to demonstrate how a mutual love of football can prove to be a catalyst for an even deeper romance. Now, the Premier League are offering single fans a chance to meet their perfect match as part of this documentary series. The plan is for the club's filmmakers to record a blind date between two fans at a local venue before the pair then head to an Arsenal game together. So you head off to the game together, and you might be a match for each other. After the match you've watched on the pitch, you might end up being a long-term match. Love is all around, and it certainly was at Carrow Road this weekend, which saw a half-time marriage proposal. This was the moment. Pass the sick bucket.
Brandis, I know you're not expecting this, but from the moment I met you, I knew you were the one for me. So, Brandis,
she said yes!
can I put it on?
And now they're getting a sprinkler to celebrate. Jack!
Now, you probably heard the chants of "you don't know what you're doing" towards the happy couple there, and how he'll ever go over that experience is anyone's guess. Gladys is still in therapy. But at the end of the day, on this Arsenal situation, is this going to work? Their own dating show. Two people meet before the game, off to the game, and you end up either a long-term relationship, or maybe it's over by about the back of 5 o'clock. Have Arsenal struck in something here, Simon, with this perfect match, this documentary series? What do you think?
I don't know what to say to this subject.
I didn't think you would.
Each to their own.
Yes,
is what I can say to it.
Yeah,
each to their own. I mean, I fell in love.
It's a bit of fun, isn't it? A bit of fun. Simon.
I fell in love with football.
Maybe Jim. Maybe what's
you fell in love at football?
I did, yeah.
Right.
Oh, okay.
The marketing director or manager of Crystal Palace, when I originally bought the box for my father, spent £10,000. She parlayed that into me doing a sponsorship of Crystal Palace, into me buying the bleeding team.
Right.
And I was very much in love with Emery. Absolutely.
You must have been smitten.
I was.
By buying that lot.
I was.
The club, Arsenal, are saying, Martin, match days at the Emirates are a time to connect with the beautiful game and each other. It's for this reason that we're launching a new dating show that celebrates how a shared love of football can prove to be a catalyst for even a deeper romance.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what your status is right now. You maybe you should rock on down.
Are you asking?
Well, I'm
Are
not
you
asking you
available?
directly, but I'm asking you, maybe you should go down to an Arsenal game
I'm
to
all
find
right,
love.
actually. I'm all right for now, but who knows longer term? But do you think this will? Do you think it's a bit of fun and it will
it
work?
is. Bit of fun.
We're calling on our single fans in the UK to apply to be part of the production, which will involve attending a blind date with a fellow Gunner centred around an Arsenal game. So it's a blind date. You don't even know the Gunner you're
It's
getting.
entertainment. Sports is now being Disneyfied in every respect. So it's entertainment. It's a bit of fun. When you go to the games that you're in America and they do those big Hawkeye cameras and they come down on people in the audience. You saw Giuliani doing it once on one of the films, didn't they? Where people are sat there. So it's an extension of that.
That happened in Qatar when you get caught kissing me. Do you remember that? But no, but I do know what you're meaning.
I hate this when he does this.
I do know what you're meaning. Do you think people will respond in the right way? I think you're right, Martin. It's a bit of fun. It's being done for the right reason, and it could be very, very entertaining viewing when it comes about.
I'm sure there'd be a success story coming out of it, Jim, as long as everyone's happy. And Arsenal keep winging, and then that's the love story I'm looking for.
I mean, I like that. Have you ever, listening this morning,
Maybe some of those horrors and AFT can find a date.
Have you ever found love at a football match? Simon surprised us all moments ago by telling us that he had. Have you? Elaine is a Palace fan. Elaine, you didn't find love at a football match with a former Palace owner, did you? No.
No, unfortunately, I've never met Simon.
Oh, well, you're lucky on that one. So what happened with you, Elaine?
You're not wrong.
My husband and I, we were both working at, they used to have a supporters club, which is now a car park at Crystal Palace. And we were both working behind the bar in the supporters club, and that's where we met. And we got married in 1980, so we've been married 45 years this June.
Wow. So it can happen. You can find love at the football. What do you think of this documentary series that Arsenal are embarking on? Do you think you would watch it, would you?
No.
After all that?
Well, no, but I think we met naturally. I don't think forcing relationships is a good way to go.
I like that, Elaine. Yes.
No, so I wouldn't. But we're still season ticket holders, and so are our sons. So we still carried on the Palace history.
We know Matthias Cunha, Martin, can score goals, and when he scores, they are invariably of the spectacular variety. But speaking in The Guardian, he says, I had a lot of offers, but I wouldn't feel well if I had done it and left Wolves in January. So he stayed. We know that. He also signed a new contract at Wolves in February, which runs until June 2029 and contains a release clause. So then you kind of raise an eyebrow when you hear some things you can't control. I couldn't leave the club in the middle of the season, a difficult situation. But now we're close to achieving our goal of staying up. I've made it clear that I need to go to the next step. I want to fight for titles, for big things. I have potential. What is your take on that, Martin, when you hear Cunha, on one hand, signing a new deal at Wolves in February, which runs until June 2029. On the other hand, now that he presumes, and he's probably right to presume, they're going to stay up, he says, but I'm out of here because I want to go to the next stage.
It sounds a mercenary, modern day player that you seem to come across at certain clubs. The timing of this is just astonishing, really. Okay, they are looking like they're going to be comfortably going to stay up. But the player, of course, Jim, I think he did the right thing in staying at the club because he could have gone in the window. He could have done that. But the timing of this, he could at least just waited for the end of the season, just slid off quietly. But to make this announcement now, I think it's really poor. He's had ill-discipline issues. He's been sent off after the final whistle twice. So now I think he's still serving his ban time, isn't he? Mm-hmm. So he's going to have to clean up his act, because I'm looking at it thinking, well, which of the top clubs then are you going to go to? Because this sort of selfishness and this sort of unprofessionalism, the way that he is here, it's all about himself, isn't it? Who's going to pick him up? Because he's going to have to change. His discipline's going to have to change, and the way that he behaves around the football club, I think he's going to get a volley in the ear when he gets back to his football club. I don't even know if he went away on international duty, whether he'd been allowed to while he's suspended for his club side. But it's really disappointing to hear this if you're a Wolves fan.
I mean, there's an argument here, Sammy. Yes, he's got a discipline problem, but he probably is one of those that plays on the edge.
Yeah, I mean, I would think, in fairness to him, he's only saying what's been implicitly agreed between him and the club anyway. I mean,
is it a bit soon though?
Well, yes, he doesn't need to say it.
No.
So whatever reason he's saying it for, one has to think it's probably ill-advised. But he's talking the truth. The reality is the club have signed a contract with him primarily to protect their position, knowing that he's going to go in the summer. And so all he's stating is what the implicit agreement is there. And maybe, who knows, maybe there's some Machiavellian reason behind the fact that the club are starting to renege on the agreement they had with him and starting to indicate to him that maybe they won't be prepared to sell him in the summer now they've got him on a 3-year deal. And then maybe there's some of that going on. Who knows? I mean, look, I had a conversation with Gary O'Neill about him and what a good player he was, and how potentially challenging he was to the other players because of the manner in which he wanted to operate and felt that he was beyond questioning about such things as timekeeping and other things like that. No doubt this boy can play. No doubt this boy is a top club player. Whether he can get away with what he's getting away with at Wolves at another club, guaranteed a big club will take him. Like every player that is a problem, managers think they can solve problems, and so they'll think it won't happen to me.
Yeah,
but he won't do this to me. Now, if he goes to a bigger club environment where the dressing room is probably a bigger, bolder, more standard-orientated dressing room, with all due respect to what's happening at Wolves, then maybe he won't be allowed to get away with that. But he is a player. No doubt about it. I don't like his histrionics on the field. I don't like the fact that he got involved with the steward or whatever it was, or one of the officials at Leicester, and pulled his glasses off. He was way over the top in the last game when he got sent off against Bournemouth, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah, he just wouldn't calm down.
Yeah, went beyond it, didn't he? But he played, as you say, he plays on the edge.
Well, I mean, that's it. I mean, he played for Brazil last week against Argentina, and Argentina battered them 4-1.
Yeah.
He scored in the 26th minute, and he was substituted in the 69th minute. So he's been away, no doubt has dropped his while he's been away. But it's the timing of it, as you say, Martin. It's the timing of it. Wolves fans now, if you're a Wolves season ticket holder and this character comes back,
but they will know. Everybody knew that when Cunha signed that contract, that, you know, everybody knew that there was a potential that it was primarily to protect the interest, and you could argue that he didn't actually need to do that. Now, I find myself in the unenviable position of being on the other side of the argument with Martin about players and their entitlements. I was going to say, you're surprising me with your take on this.
Yeah, but this is about conduct, isn't it? So he'll probably look back with regret, wouldn't he? Just do the dignified thing. Stay to the end of the season.
I would assume,
because you already did the dignified thing in staying at Wolves. He could have gone.
Yeah, absolutely. He's gone too far with what he said. Didn't need to say it. But again, I go to the point. We don't know the conversations. If indeed, and I'm just playing devil's advocate for the purpose of the conversation, Wolves' management said to him, sign this contract, we'll see you out in the summer, it protects our position. And all of a sudden, murmurings are coming from Wolves' management, well, we'd prefer not to do that, we'd prefer to keep you. The player's sitting there going, well, hang on a second, that's not what I signed a new contract for, that's not what we agreed.
One assumes it'd be an agreed amount, though, wouldn't it? To exit the football club.
Possibly. Then it's not,
all we're happy with that.
But then here's the thing, if it's an agreed amount, he doesn't need to do this interview because it will take care of itself.
Yes, exactly.
His agent will be touting him around, and he'll get him out the door.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, it's an interview. Now, also on the other side of the equation, if you know you've got a player that's a little bit loose around the lips, he has to get club permission to go and do the interview with the Guardian anyway, or wherever he did this interview. So why'd they give him permission?
You would think he would have to have permission. You would think that. Martin Hove, and it's an interesting take in it. Geez, guys, he stayed at Wolves and he's kept them up. So he's saved them millions. He has played out of his skin, to be fair, and scored important goals at important times.
He's also got sent off in games and left them a bit short at times.
He signed a contract. Still, at the end of the day, it's come down to him and his talent on the field that Wolves fans have been admiring. And he has played it at certain times. He has played a key part in them staying up, you would have to argue. But at the end of the day, man, you just cannot credit that someone would say, but I need to go. Even though we're staying up, sorry, guy, I need to go. Because then he creates division.
Yeah, I just think it's unnecessary. You make your mark at a football club, which he undoubtedly has done, but you don't leave a bad taste in the mouth, which is what this does.
But they all do it. Mahrez went on bleeding strike when he couldn't get out of Leicester. I mean, the moment a player doesn't get what he wants...
I don't think they all do it, Simon. I think the ones that do it, the ones that do do it,
many of them do it.
The ones that do it, we certainly remember.
Some of them may not do it, and it doesn't hit the public domain, but they damn sure do it behind the scenes, and you damn sure are dealing with their representation that are telling you what they're likely to do if they don't get what you want.
That's okay behind the scenes. I don't mind him doing that behind the scenes because he wants to get away. He wants to use Wolves as a stepping stone. The fans have to accept that. He played his part in keeping them up. They fully expect to see him go. but to say this publicly while you're away on international duty, and when you're away on international duty, that's when they were seen as fair game. Because when they want to talk to you when you're with your international team about your club, so you should just put the hatches down. Really,
maybe we should ask Wolves fans, given the fact we're offended on behalf of them, whether they're offended.
Is it the case more travelling equals worse quality on the pitch? And if so, what's the answer? Do the players at some stage soon have to decide between country and club, club and country? Mark, we're going to take some calls on this. Chris is a Brighton fan. Chris, good morning. Were you there on Saturday evening?
I was, yeah. It was fantastic. Well, it wasn't a great game. And I think the point I'm trying to make is that you shouldn't play an FA Cup quarter-final with the reward being a date at Wembley 3 days after an international break. I mean, Estepinian came back from South America on Thursday afternoon. We have Mitoma, we got Believer. We had 22 players on international duty. It's not fair to play 130 minutes after an international break for such an important cup competition.
But when would you play it though, Chris? I mean, your club have got Villa on Wednesday night in the Premier League.
Yeah, I'm worried about that as well because of the time that they're going to have to recover.
Right.
But, I just think they could have rescheduled it at a different time. I'm not saying the league game's less important than the cup game, but the potential for 130 minutes of a cup game is far greater pressure on the players than it would be in a normal league game.
And do you think, Chris, that was reflected in the standard of game that they served up at the Amex on Saturday?
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, neither team really were at full strength. Well, we were at full strength, but certainly they didn't perform the way they normally perform. I normally see Brighton playing on the front foot all the time, lots of shots, lots of movement, and they just seem to be very lethargic.
Yeah, would extra time being scrapped help that?
Yeah, possibly, although we did beat Newcastle in extra time in the last round, so I'm not necessarily going to say that was a bad thing.
Right.
But both teams were out on their feet.
Okay, well, it's probably the schedule, isn't it? Joe's a big Arsenal fan, and I think you're pointing the finger at schedule, are you, Joe?
Yeah, not only schedule. I want to make a point around play. Well, I understand what you're saying about player welfare. I wanted to make a point around the depth of the squad. I feel like you haven't mentioned it in a way that obviously I'm an Arsenal fan, and I know I'm not one to talk about depth. I know we don't have much depth, but you've got to rely on your depth of the squad, right? In the way that if some of your best players aren't available or they're not, feeling 90 minutes, you've got to rely on your other players to come in. This doesn't seem to be mentioned.
I see. I understand what you're saying. A stronger squad. I mean, there has to be a way around it, Simon.
You're not going to get me to disagree that Arsenal fans lack depth. But the point is that I look at it and say, you've got Brighton that told us, by the way, Jason Steele sat in the studio and said, watch this game, we're going to be really at it after we got beat 7-0. And now what we're doing is we're dialing out a set of excuses because two or three players played in international games. It's silly. It's silly.
Should they do anything, Simon, with the international dates? So, for instance, like if we're playing, because it's 2 weeks they're away, and back in the day, you used to play quite early. You play like in the midweek and then the weekend, and then you'd have that whole week back at your club to train up for the next match. Whereas some of these games are being played quite late, Tuesday and Wednesday or Monday nights, and they've got to come halfway around the world. Should there be a squeeze somewhere on when they're played, when you go off to international duty, that we play early in the international window?
I mean, a lot of people actually are agreeing with you, Martin, that the PFA should be involved. Yes, they should get to the table to represent the players in this. But why are they not beating a path to the table to do just that?
Well, I believe that they have tried to do that. Simon he hates the PFA and anybody that's
it tests them like a disease.
But I'm afraid, Simon, it's there. It's set up to protect the players. And they need to act. They need to act because they do need to be at the table, Jim. Look, it's an occupational hazard, isn't it? When success follows you, you get into the international teams. Forest and Brighton and Bournemouth, they've all invested in players from around the world. So we're seeing this. It's one of the. It's a symptom. It's a symptom of success.
But again, we keep on going round and round.
You buy players from South America, you're going to get this.
This is the challenge, and you've got a schedule. where the game has now brought itself to a point where the cost implications of the game are such a huge level.
They are the property of the clubs. Simon.
Indeed, that's why you want...
So maybe the dates that they determine international should be...
As a former owner of a football club, what you do is you want to make sure your assets are looked after the best you possibly can.
So you'd want your players playing early, wouldn't you, in that
I would want my players to be looked after as best they possibly can, because it suits me to have
a full week recovery.
If I'm being mercenary about it, I'm motivated by having my players effective and fit. So the last thing I want to do is argue against that. But I don't hear is all I hear from people like you is what you don't want to do. And I understand you want a 4-week break during the summer, and most football clubs get it. Maybe the top clubs don't.
People communicate in discussions, and they like we are here.
But we know
in a sensible discussion, where we try to find solutions.
But we know what the PFA do.
And this might be one, might it?
We know what the PFA do.
Where the international games are played earlier in that window.
What you do, which is walk into a room and tell people what you don't want to do. And we can all do that. If you come to me with a plan which shows out the schedule of how a team that plays in European competitions, plays in international football with big players, and subsequently fulfills their obligations economically and literally, I'll sit there and go, brilliant, but no one ever does. They just sit there like the idea of socialism is great until you run out of someone else's money.
Maybe Arsenal
the idea of finding solutions is much more difficult until you have to.
Bill, you've been listening to that, big Arsenal fan. Do you have a solution?
Yeah, I think I've got a solution. I don't think Simon will like it at all. I completely agree with Martin. And by the way, Martin, you're an absolute legend, invincible. You know, that's something that no one else has ever got. Well done, mate.
Thank you.
I was thinking, like, we should increase the squad numbers, so that
that's a good idea.
More players, there's more players that can play when other players need to take a break. Because I 100% agree with Martin. You know, these injuries come round because players are playing too many games. The hamstring goes. I had it myself. My hamstring went when I played three games in 1 week. You know, and also I think. I don't know how this is going to go down, but like a cap on transfer fees.
Right.
So that each squad has a fair shot at getting a good player, so they can build their squads, and each squad has, you know.
You cap transfer fees. Are you going to buy players?
You know what I mean?
So, Bill, there's one for you. Andrew in Cornwall, Bill. Do you agree with him? Yeah. The solution here is bigger squads, lower wages. You agree with that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but is it all about money, or do we want to see competitive football?
So let me get this right. I absolutely agree with bigger squads, and then what we'll hear is, how can I manage that squad? I got too many players to try and manage. It's awful, and we've got too many players. Look at Chelsea; it's a debacle. They've got 40 players. Wherever you give someone, whatever solution you provide. If there's not an outcome, then people will say that's the reason.
We're not hearing against bigger squads. We're not hearing that now, are we? In the modern day game, are you hearing that?
Chelsea at the beginning of the season.
No, hold on. Where everyone now is begging for more players, they ain't even got a striker for Chelsea.
How much more modern do you want
Palmer's
it to be?
Out.
Everyone was saying that Chelsea's squad was bloated.